Well, the battle for Activision Blizzard continues to wage on, with Microsoft working to acquire them currently, and their projected time for the acquisition to be through is midway through 2023, essentially. And we know in the UK, some of the regulators there are taking a stronger look into what's happening right now and how it would affect the market. But we also know that Sony has been working really hard to run interference with this entire thing, and now we have Jim Ryan firing back at Microsoft and Phil Spencer over an apparent offer that was given with the future of Call of Duty in mind. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave Plus channel, make sure you subscribe down below. Let's head over here to gamesindustry.biz. This was from Christopher Dring. I will leave a link to this article down below. This says PlayStation, Xbox's Call of Duty offer was inadequate on many levels. Now, this is in a statement from Jim Ryan. If you remember, The Verge had a statement from Phil Spencer over him sending a letter or an email or just some sort of written communication with Sony and Jim Ryan going over the future of Call of Duty and saying, hey, we're planning on keeping it on the PlayStation for several more years. We talked about that a bit, and it basically came down to, what does several exactly mean? How do we define that? Well, apparently they did define it in some of the paperwork that was sent over, as Jim Ryan laid it all out here. And I got to say, Jim Ryan does not seem too amused with the entire situation becoming public. He says, I hadn't intended to comment on what I understood to be a private business discussion, but I feel the need to set the record straight because Phil Spencer brought this into the public forum. So, as I said, Jim Ryan, not too happy with this becoming public. This, of course, would be discussions going on behind the scenes, and that's probably where he understood it would be kept, but it seemed like Phil was pretty happy to go out there and respond to The Verge, whereas you can just say, hey, we don't comment on ongoing dealings and everything going on with this acquisition because it's lawyers involved, all these different things, right? It seemed like Phil Spencer was pretty interested in putting that out there, and yeah, that can sway things with the public opinion and all that. And of course, to put on a good face for regulators. That's really what Microsoft and Phil Spencer are trying to do now with these write-ups they're putting on their Microsoft website and comments that they make to essentially say, hey, we're not gonna try to leverage this heavily to try to drive people away from PlayStation, but it's business. We all understand that Microsoft's right now, Xbox's sole goal right now, they are focusing on more people signing up to Game Pass. How do you do that? You have stuff there that really can only be found there, right, as a means to sign up, or in other cases, to save money, as they have positioned things like MLB The Show that Sony is kind enough to develop for them with the deal with MLB. And that way they can, of course, provide value. And in this case, with Call of Duty, could potentially provide the only means to get it. At least that is the concern from Sony. He goes on to say, Microsoft has only offered for Call of Duty to remain on PlayStation for 3 years after the current agreement between Activision and Sony ends. After almost 20 years of Call of Duty on PlayStation, their proposal was inadequate on many levels and failed to take account of the impact on our gamers. We want to guarantee PlayStation gamers continue to have the highest quality Call of Duty experience, and Microsoft's proposal undermines this principle. So I'm a little confused as to what Jim Ryan thinks the alternative is here. Like, technically, Microsoft doesn't have to show up and lay this stuff out for you. You know, they don't have to promise you anything. They can just work with regulators, and let's be real, it's Microsoft. I'm sure they're big enough and they have enough pull behind the scenes to eventually get this deal through. It might take longer than anticipated, but I feel like Microsoft could push this deal through as they go along, right? They can call a lot of favors and all these different things there. But it's interesting because Phil Spencer goes to Jim Ryan and says, you guys have 2 years for marketing, to my understanding. And then we'll tack on another 3 years, so 5 years, which would push them up through like 2027, 2028 for Call of Duty being on PlayStation, apparently in parity with the Xbox version. Now, there are, I'm sure, a lot of fine print details that we're not being told here that maybe Sony lawyers spotted and they're like, well, this doesn't cover this part of the live service or early access stuff and so on, right? Obviously, the marketing, I think, is one of the biggest issues that Sony has right now, because that really helped them in the PlayStation 4 generation. Positioning the PS4 as the Call of Duty console, I mean, really drove console sales. Obviously, it was also cheaper than the Xbox One, but it's kind of flipped around now where Microsoft has the cheaper system, and they could potentially have all the Call of Duty marketing here pretty soon, especially after this deal goes through. 2 more years for Sony to have it, and then after that, you're going to see the Xbox logo and the Call of Duty logo basically be like connected at the hip wherever they go then. And I can't really blame Jim Ryan for trying to push back and do whatever he can to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation. It's something that, like I said, has really helped them in the past. But now is the time to start developing your own live service that could attempt to at least keep some gamers who are really into the military style shooters, right? Like, you have SOCOM. Work on something like that. Create a new intellectual property that could maybe go up against Call of Duty. And I understand Call of Duty is in like a league of its own, but at least try something. And I feel like they are right now. It's just they don't want to also lose Call of Duty if they can help it. But I mean, I just don't really know what Jim Ryan thinks is going to happen next. I think Phil's going to go, well, I mean, I guess he's right. We're just going to sign a contract and it'll just be there indefinitely. Those kind of contracts aren't going to exist in this deal. Like, I would see them sticking with something like this and be like, it's the final offer, it's nothing, and I guess Sony will have to decide what they want to do then. But it's weird because I'm not really sure what Jim Ryan thinks they're going to come back to the table with. My thought is it's either 3 years, take it or leave it, and then they'll just move along with this deal. But I still think Sony is going to do as much as possible to try to convince regulators that this deal cannot go through. The only issue is they seem to be the only ones pushing back on this right now. I mean, think about it. The people at Activision Blizzard, from what we've seen that have made it public, are okay with this deal because in their mind, they're like, oh, cool, Bobby Kotick is probably out after this deal goes through, and we'll report to Phil Spencer and Matt Booty. And the investors or shareholders seem happy as well because they are going to get a premium on any of the current shares that they're holding. And then on top of that, if you're a Game Pass subscriber or someone who's thought about it in your mind, you're like, whoa, wait a minute, all these Activision Blizzard games are going to go into that service and Call of Duty will be there every year it's released? Well, yeah, that just adds more value to my subscription service. Like I said, it seems like Sony is indeed the only entity that is really pushing back against that I've seen. And I mention all of that because it is indeed a tough sell for Sony to make to regulators that this deal would hurt the industry and the market when they're the only ones who appear to be against it. So I assume now they'll just stick with the 3-year deals. Like, hey, if you want it, it's there. If not, we'll move on without it. And that'll kind of be that. So I still think this deal is going to eventually go through sometime next year. And I don't believe Call of Duty is coming off of the PlayStation for a little while at least. Like, it could potentially be the rest of this generation. But, I mean, I got to say, when the next generation comes around, and we're talking like 2027, 2028, and everything is still around where it is now. I mean, things can change wildly in the span of 5 or 6 years. But we're anticipating that next system to launch from Microsoft and Sony. I mean, what better launch game than an exclusive Call of Duty title for the platform to go along with Game Pass? So we'll see how all of this works out, but Jim Ryan does not seem very excited about any of this, and he kind of aired his frustrations with all of this becoming public. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.